Part 1. The Beginning of a Dream. Chapter 1. Honeymoon Dreams. Emma, gentle, sensitive, yet resilient woman, had long dreamed of an extraordinary honeymoon. Proposed a trip to a remote forest where ancient, towering trees stood like timeless guardians. Emma agreed without hesitation. They set off on a cold, crisp morning. As the sun timidly peeked through delicate clouds, in Daniel's lovingly maintained, albeit old, car, they followed a road that led straight into nature's heart. Emma sat by the window, her eyes fixed on the hazy fields, the clustered trees, and the feeling that every moment held a promise of something wondrous. At first, Daniel's warm smile and cheerful conversation about their upcoming plans filled the ride. Yet, as they ventured further into the untamed wilderness, his demeanor began to shift. A heavy silence gradually enveloped the car. His eyes turned cold and distant, and his responses grew curt. Emma sensed that something was amiss, but her deep trust in him made her overlook these early signs. Chapter 2. The uncharted path. Car rolled along a bumpy, unpaved road, steadily leaving behind all signs of civilization. The landscape transformed from soft, rolling fields to a dense forest where sunlight struggled to pierce the thick canopy overhead, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Emma's heart raced as she absorbed the majestic yet ominous scenery. Every rustle of the leaves and every whisper of the wind carried an undercurrent of mystery, as if nature itself was hinting at an unfolding secret. Meanwhile, Daniel's silence deepened. His responses were curt, a stark contrast to the warmth of earlier moments. In that moment, Emma realized she was not merely a wife on an idyllic honeymoon. She was becoming lost in a labyrinth of conflicting emotions and an uncertain destiny. Chapter 3. Mysteries. Along the forest road, after hours of driving on narrow and marked paths, Daniel abruptly stopped the car near a secluded trail. "Let's stretch our legs," he said flatly, grabbing a backpack as he stepped out. Though confusion tinged her excitement, the gentle chirping of birds and the distant murmur of a stream added to the serene setting. But soon, Emma's wonder turned to alarm. Daniel halted abruptly, placed the backpack on the ground, and fixed her with a cold, unreadable stare before turning around and walking away without a word. "Daniel?" Emma called out nervously, a laugh betraying her rising anxiety. He did not answer, nor did he glance back. Panic surged as she took a step forward, but Daniel only quickened his pace. When she tried to grab his arm, he jerked free and shoved her back. Emma stumbled, barely managing to keep her balance as she pleaded. "Daniel, stop joking. What's wrong?" Finally, he looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes sent shivers down her spine. No warmth, no remorse, only calculated indifference. "This is where we say goodbye, Emma," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Emma's world shattered in that moment. What do you mean?" Her pleas grew louder, yet her shots were swallowed by the forest as the car's engine roared to life, its tires churning up dust as Daniel reversed onto the trail. Emma screamed his name until it faded into the rustling leaves. Paralyzed by shock, she watched in dismay as the man she had vowed to love forever drove away into the dense trees, leaving behind a silence as cold as the void in her heart. Collapsing onto the damp forest floor, Emma's body trembled and her mind raced, unwilling to accept the cruel reality. This had to be a terrible misunderstanding, a cruel prank that would soon be revealed as nothing more than a test. Yet deep down she knew the truth. She was utterly alone, abandoned in the wilderness without supplies, phone, or any means of escape. As the weight of despair crashed over her, Emma pressed her palms against the cold, damp earth, trying in vain to steady her trembling body. On her, nothing but an endless expanse of wild, unyielding nature surrounded her. The whispering wind carried secrets through the trees. Desperate to figure out which direction Daniel had taken, perhaps she could follow the tire tracks back to a road, but when she looked down, the soft layer of fallen leaves had erased any trace of his passage. With her heart pounding and her throat dry, she realized she had no map, no phone, and no clue how far into the wilderness she had ventured. Yet amid this crushing sense of helplessness, Emma resolved that she could not let despair consume her. She had to move. She had to do something. With trembling determination, she chose a direction and began to walk, first hastily, then breaking into a desperate run in search of any sign of civilization or a path to safety. But as she ran, the towering trees seemed to close in around her, their thick branches forming an impenetrable barrier against the sky. Minutes blurred into hours as Emma's exhaustion grew, her throat dried out, her stomach churned with hunger, and her legs ached with every step. The realization that she had neither food, water, nor shelter weighed heavily on her spirit as darkness began to creep in with the fading daylight. The thought of spending a cold, lonely night in the unforgiving forest sent a shiver down her spine. Then, out of the silence, came a rustling in the underbrush. Emma froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She was not alone. Her pulse pounded as she turned toward the sound, her mind racing with possibilities. A deer, a fox, or perhaps even a person. Someone who might help her. "Hello," she called out, her voice quivering with fear. No answer came, only the intensifying rustle of leaves as something large moved through the undergrowth. Every muscle in her body tensed, her instincts screaming for her to run, but her feet refused to obey. The bushes ahead trembled violently, and then, from the shadows, a massive figure emerged. A bear, a towering, powerful creature with thick dark fur and gleaming, sharp eyes, an animal so imposing that Emma's stomach lurched. The bear stepped forward, its heavy paws pressing into the earth and its head tilting as if it were studying her. Emma could barely breathe. She recalled enough survival guides to know that bears could be unpredictable. Some attacked without warning, while others paid no heed to human presence. But, standing frozen, face to face with this wild animal, she had no idea what to do. Despite the terror gripping her, Emma tried to remain calm. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps, and her knees threatened to buckle. Every instinct urged her to run, yet she knew that fleeing might only provoke the beast. The bear exhaled sharply, nostrils flaring as it took in her scent. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, bracing herself for the worst, only to find, upon opening one eye, that the bear still stood there, watching her intently without attacking, growling, or charging. It waited, a new, perplexing fear mingled with hope in Emma's heart. Why was it not harming her? Why had it not advanced? Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the bear turned and lumbered back into the trees. Emma's breath hitched as she realized the creature seemed to beckon her to follow. Without shelter, Emma knew that staying put might mean certain death. So, with trembling resolve, she began to follow the bear through the dense underbrush. Chapter 4. And the dense canopy blocked up the last vestiges of daylight. Time lost meaning, minutes stretched into hours, and Emma's body was pushed to its limits, her throat parched. A soft rustling in the underbrush made her freeze. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to run, yet her feet remained rooted in fear. The bushes trembled violently, and then, emerging from the shadows, the bear reappeared. It was larger and more formidable up close than Emma had ever imagined. The bear paused, watching her with deep, dark eyes that seemed to hold both curiosity and a hint of benevolence. For a long, heart-stopping moment, Emma and the bear simply observed each other. She expected it to attack or retreat. Emma felt an unexpected surge of gratitude mingled with sorrow. Here was the very creature that had unwittingly saved her life by guiding her to shelter, now leaving her alone once again. Gathering her shattered resolve, Emma pressed herself against the cool cave wall, clutching her arms around herself to ward off the cold and the emotional numbness. She vowed silently, "I will survive. I must find a way out." Yet inside, the pain of betrayal and abandonment by the man she once vowed to love still throbbed with each labored breath. Chapter 5. Light amidst the darkness. As the night deepened, Emma sought refuge in the small cave that the bear had unwittingly guided her to. The shelter was modest, a rocky nook lined with soft earth and scattered leaves, but it offered more protection than being exposed to the merciless elements. Inside, Emma felt the full weight of her loss and isolation, alone with only the echo of her own ragged breathing and the distant, rhythmic sound of the bear's breathing outside. She drifted between wakefulness and sleep, the bear's presence rather than evoking fear, now provided a strange comfort, as if nature itself had chosen to guard her in her darkest hour. In the fragile hours before sleep claimed her, Emma's mind churned with questions and despair. How could the man she once trusted so completely have abandoned her without a second thought? And why had the wild beast acted as her silent guardian, though no human could replace the warmth and security of a loving partner? That night, the bear became her unlikely savior. Part 2. Awakening of the Soul, a Journey in Search of Hope. Chapter 1. Dawn of awakening. When the first rays of dawn seeped through the crevices of the cave, Emma slowly awoke. Her body still trembled from a night spent battling cold and fear, yet her tired eyes gradually opened to reveal the crisp, fresh air of the forest morning. She took in the subtle details around her. Emma recalled the previous night, the terror of hearing the bear's steady breathing, its inscrutable gaze, and the silent protection it had offered her. Somehow, she felt that the wild creature's unexpected intervention carried a message. Even when all human trust is shattered, nature may still provide a guiding light. After sitting in quiet reflection for a few minutes, Emma resolved to rise. Though still uncertain about the full meaning behind the events, she knew that the only way forward was to press on, to seek help, and, more importantly, to reclaim herself. Before leaving the cave, she noticed subtle signs left behind. Slight scratches on the rocky surface and small bits of fruit scattered near the entrance, almost as if the bear had marked its gentle stewardship, tenderly touching them. Emma felt a swell of gratitude and awe for the silent protector of the wild. Chapter 2. The first steps outside the cave. Stepping out of the cave, Emma was greeted by a morning that felt unexpectedly invigorating. Every sense was alive. The melodious chorus of birds, the rustle of leaves stirred by the breeze, and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream. Clinging to hope, she decided to follow the sound of the water, believing it might lead her to signs of life, a village, a road, or even just the faint evidence of human presence. Every step was not only a physical struggle against thorny underbrush and slippery, muddy paths, but also an internal battle against the storm of emotions raging within. The anger at being betrayed, the terror of being left alone, and the bittersweet realization that she was now forced to rebuild her life without Daniel. Pausing at the stream's edge, Emma knelt down and cupped her hands to drink the cool, refreshing water. Each sip soothed her parched throat and rejuvenated her spirit, if only slightly. In that moment, she wondered whether these harrowing events were the painful price for a new beginning, one where she would never again be dependent on hollow promises or toxic relationships. Chapter 3. The Journey in Search of Life. Following the gentle gurgling of the stream, Emma ventured into a more open part of the forest. Towering trees and lush shrubs intermingled with the cheerful calls of birds to form a living tapestry of hope and renewal. Despite encountering muddy paths and having to scale over large boulders, she pressed forward. Each step was a pledge to herself. I will survive. I will reclaim my life. During her journey, Emma stumbled upon a curious relic, a tattered silk scarf. Its colors faded, yet still reminiscent of once bright hues of mint and soft pink. The scarf, clinging to a branch as if by fate, stirred memories of the past. In that delicate fabric, she saw echoes of Daniel, a symbol of the promises he once made, now tarnished by betrayal. The bittersweet pain mingled with determination, reinforcing her belief that this journey was not only about physical survival but also about healing the wounds of the past. Chapter 4. Signs of the Past and Belief in the Future. As Emma delved deeper into the forest, she began to realize that the wilderness was not merely a backdrop for her survival story, it was a wise teacher. Pausing in a clearing where wildflowers bloomed in unrestrained beauty and the air carried a soothing fragrance, she pondered, could it be that the pain and loss I have suffered were necessary lessons, paving the way for a life where I learn to love and value existence even more deeply? In these quiet moments, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the bear, the silent guardian from the previous night. To her, the bear had become a symbol of nature's resilience and empathy, proof that life, in its rawest form, I see Emma's journey as a profound exploration of both the external world and her inner self, a testament that even the deepest betrayals can give birth to unexpected strength and renewal. Continuing on her path, Emma began to notice faint traces of human presence, blurred footprints in the mud, remnants of an abandoned camp. Each sign was a small beacon of hope, suggesting that civilization and perhaps salvation was not entirely out of reach. Chapter 5. Confronting oneself and the past. Under the sprawling boughs of an ancient tree, Emma found a small, flat clearing where she sat down to reflect. In the quiet solitude, she faced her innermost fears and sorrows: the betrayal by Daniel, the shattered promises, and the loneliness that had almost broken her spirit. She wondered if she could ever truly let go of the pain, or if it would forever mark her soul. As memories of happier times with Daniel, gentle smiles, whispered promises, and moments of tender intimacy flashed through her mind, she also recalled the subtle warnings she had once ignored. In the stillness of nature, Emma came to understand that every event, no matter how painful, had a lesson to impart. To move forward, she realized she needed to forgive, not for Daniel's sake, but for her own freedom. With her spirit gradually unburdening, Emma rose from her contemplative seat. She did not know what lay ahead: a village, a rescue, or merely another path to tread, but she recognized that each step was a stride toward healing and inner freedom. Chapter 6. The Call of Nature and a New Turning Point. As the sun climbed higher, Emma began to hear distant sounds of human activity, a soft hum of voices, and the occasional rumble of vehicles. It was not the clamorous noise of a bustling city, but rather the gentle cadence of a community living in harmony with nature. In that moment, Emma's heart warmed. Hints of hope flickered in her mind like fragile yet persistent flames. Along the narrow trail, she encountered locals, kind-hearted people clad in simple clothes, living close to the forest and deeply connected to its rhythms. They shared with her tales of the ancient woods, of the spirits of the land, and of times when nature itself had rescued them from despair. These stories, woven from both myth and lived experience, rekindled in Emma the belief that despite human treachery, nature's benevolence remained ever present. In these humble exchanges, Emma began to restore her faith in life. She realized that beyond the shadows of betrayal and loss, there existed countless wonders, lessons in perseverance, forgiveness, and the rebirth of the spirit. My own view, as expressed through Emma's journey, is that no failure or hurt is ever entirely destructive. Rather, each hardship opens a door to a stronger, more vibrant self. Chapter 7. A New Transition and the Rebirth of the soul. After spending several days with the local community, Emma resolved that her journey was far from over. A compelling inner call, one of liberation, and a desire to forge a new life unburdened by the past, propelled her onward. She began to prepare for a fresh voyage, one not only in search of physical sustenance, but also as a quest to reclaim and redefine her inner self. On quiet, starlit nights, as the cool wind whispered through the trees, Emma would recall the bear's steady gaze, the guardian who had led her to shelter in her darkest hour. In that memory, she found solace and a reminder that each of us harbors an inner protector, whether in the form of nature's miracles, kind souls met along the way, or the untapped strength hidden within. With her heart buoyed by these reflections and the lessons learned, Emma stepped out of the familiar safety of the community. She resumed her journey along the winding, shadowed paths of the forest, unsure of what challenges lay ahead, eyeing to weave a narrative that transcends mere survival, a story of betrayal and despair transforming into one of hope and rebirth. Emma's journey through the wilderness is not just a physical escape from a treacherous past, but also an inner pilgrimage towards self-discovery and healing. Even in our darkest moments, nature can offer unexpected guidance and protection, reminding us that every ending is also a new beginning.